Good afternoon, everybody. We are doing another community conversation this week, and you might think, man, what's the Arts Council doing? Not social distancing. But luckily for me, I live with an artist. So, welcome Dr. Aaron Ragsdale today. Thanks for joining us. That there might not have been a choice on this. So
yeah, no, you're pretty well locked into this one. No, it's pretty good.
So if we're starting with our first questions here today, tell us what you do and what you're doing here in South Dakota.
Sure, yeah, I teach it in the School of Performing Arts at the university. I teach percussion mainly, lessons to our majors. I teach a pedagogy class for our music education students. I work with the Pride of the Dakotas Marching Band. I teach percussion ensemble. That's kind of it. I mean, right now I'm teaching a classroom class to some honor students, and that's really fun. And then I play with the South Dakota Symphony and play around. I do a faculty recital every year, play with some of my colleagues up there at the school. And yeah, that's basically where I
am. Normally in this part, I would say like, man, that sounds like a lot of stuff. But I do know that is a lot of stuff too, so that you're doing. But I would say it's... because I know you personally, it's more than that. Like I would say, Aaron, how many lessons do you teach each week?
For students through the university, I teach all my majors, which we've got 4 majors that are percussion specific, and 2 more students that are vocal primary and take percussion lessons, and 1 more student that's a clarinet primary and takes percussion lessons. But it's about 10 or 11 students during the week that we teach privately.
And so those of you that are not in the performing arts are degrees. For those that are in college, a unique thing for those that are in those is they get one-on-one time with a professor each week, which for us, like the students, which this crisis is kind of put in our minds, like just the enormity of not being able to see these students, but also all of the ensembles and everything that they're participating in, not getting to do those performances. Specifically, I feel bad for seniors this year.
Right, yeah, the seniors in any of our ensembles. I mean, right now we're sort of in limbo. We're in online only teaching for the next 2 weeks, which, we're used to hands-on time with students and face-to-face time with students and getting to not just work with them on their music and their technical and musical development, but to see them as people and to work on their artistic development that way. This is going to be interesting. So we're setting up lots of, everybody right now is using the Zoom video conferencing platform to do that. So we're setting that up. I've been emailing all my students with assignments, and we're going to post things to YouTube and comment and sit down face-to-face on Zoom. It's really been disruptive. I mean, we have, programs in place and repertoire in place that you put in place about a year out for our ensembles. And to not be able to meet for that 100 to 200 minutes a week in large groups has been, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to present a challenge, but I know all of us are working on, really providing an opportunity for those students to do some meaningful work and to still get something out of, at least the next 2 weeks, and then we'll see where things bring us after that.
I just want to say that we both very much support social distancing, so that's not it. We know that the health and safety of our state and our city and our nation is important. It just is another unique challenge for especially those in the performing arts. So what inspired you to go into percussion?
Yeah, well, I grew up with a percussion teacher. I mean, my dad has been teaching percussion at the University of Arkansas this is year 45, maybe 46. Maybe, yeah. It's at least year 45. So I grew up in this environment and really fell in love with it. I mean, there is a bit of kind of the do fish know that they're wet thing, or like at some level It was like, hey, why wouldn't you play percussion when it gets time to choose an instrument and band? I started playing with the North Arkansas Symphony, which was a professional organization and a summer symphony. Yeah, before I started school band. I mean, we started school band in the 7th grade. In Northwest Arkansas, and I think as a 5th grader, the Arkansas Music Festival needed an extra percussionist to play triangle on Also sprach Zarathustra, and so I did. I could handle a triangle roll as a 5th grader. Is a thing that you get taught, and you sit there and you wait for the big chords and you play triangle roll, and then you sit for about another 25 minutes, and when those big chords come back at the end, you play your triangle roll again. And that's how I got started. And after that, you're kind of off and running. If you've already been playing with professional musicians, why would you go back to relearning my mom's a clarinetist, so why would you go back to learning the clarinet if you've already been playing professionally as a percussionist?
And yes. I will say your mom also says that it is easier on the ears for beginning percussionist
my
than
sister,
it is for beginning clarinetist.
Yeah, my sister wanted to play the clarinet, and mom said, no, thank you, you can play percussion like your brothers played. Yeah.
Well, and for you also, you didn't go necessarily to college as a music education major.
No, I didn't. Yeah. No, I started at the University of Oklahoma as an undeclared student. I had a lot of interests. I had done some theater in high school. I really liked to write. So what I did was get over there, and I jumped into the things I knew to be involved with. I got into marching band, I got into percussion ensemble, and then that was my friend group, and I realized that I really was missing taking lessons, and I really wanted to get back into performing. So it was my second semester at Oklahoma that I fell back into being a music major.
When I talked to Dr. Kevin Kessler earlier about just the importance of being involved in those kind of groups, and I know for us, like we met at marching band at the University of Oklahoma, but just even times like now, but when you're starting college and you're in it, it's so good to have a group. It doesn't have to be marching band. It can be...
But it should be. Yeah. It doesn't have to be, but it really should be.
Well, yes. But it's having that kind of instant social group where you have like-minded people that you can get to that's important for when you're transitioning from being that high school student to being on your own at college. And I know that we felt that way at the University of Oklahoma. But we've also been fortunate to be a part of the University of Arkansas. And then Aaron taught over at Rutgers University for a while. And even here, like you see the amazing support that those students have, but just the opportunity to have kind of that group of friends and stuff. So who do you listen to now for inspiration? That's a loaded question, I feel like.
No, I mean, I still go back to my doctoral teacher was Shi-Yi Wu. I still go back to Shi-Yi's recordings. I think she's the best marimba player on the planet, and still is. And so I go back to her recordings for inspiration. I tend to listen to composers now, maybe more than performers. So I hit composer websites a lot. Christopher Cerrone is a composer I'm listening to a lot right now. I listen to Roomful of Teeth a lot when I'm in Caroline Shaw's music. She's got a great album out with the Ataka String Quartet of her new music. And
they were just here not too long ago.
Roomful of Teeth? Yeah. That was three years ago, maybe. Yeah. And they're awesome. So, I try to listen to the other musicians in other disciplines, and whoever's, you just get inspired by people that are really geniuses in their field, and then that's where I go. I've been going back into Evelyn Glennie's catalog a lot recently. Third Coast Percussion, their Paddle to the Sea disc came out, was nominated, won the Grammy for that one, I think. That's a terrific bit of recording, so...
Was it Third Coast or So that I saw is doing some sort of live concert?
Third Coast is doing a series of live concerts. One tonight, today's Friday. Right. One tonight at 7:30 off of their YouTube channel.
Free. It should be great. I'd encourage anybody. You don't have to be just a lover of classical music to be able to love this kind of stuff. It's always good, especially when you're stuck at home a lot, to be able to try out all these new things. So. Yeah.
And they're a rock band in a lot of ways. I mean, that there'll be world components, there'll be contemporary classical things, but those guys are rock and roll musicians in a lot of ways.
Do you feel like percussion in general is moving towards like more percussion orchestra type stuff, or do you see a lot more soloists coming out in the field?
I think it depends on where you are. I think there are great. We were fortunate at Oklahoma to play in a program that was really kind of the premier percussion orchestra. Program, so multiple marimbas, 8 marimbas, and 2 and 3 vibraphones, and timpani, and those programs, there are still a lot of really good ones. The University of Houston is terrific. Texas Christian University is terrific. Actually, University of Nebraska is doing really good work. They're really doing really great work. But it tends to be at the university level. Those are big forces. You're talking about 15 players and thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. But all of those collegiate programs you can track down on YouTube, or they've got recordings. So that's its own specific thing. Like percussion and Third Coast percussion and sandbox percussion and Tigwe are these chamber collectives. Okay. And so you see quartets and quintets and smaller groups. Heartland Marimba Quartet is one that's based out of Iowa with Matt Coley. And so if you're talking about professional groups, they tend to be a little smaller because you, again, don't need $100,000 worth of equipment. You might only have $70,000 worth of equipment. And you don't need quite as large a recital space. But there are also terrific soloists that I go to and check out. I mean, Colin Curry is that way, or Evelyn Glennie, or Mike Burrett at Eastman. I mean, you run into these people that each have their own voices, so you can kind of pick and choose and go. So I move around a lot with listening.
Well, and I think there's like a variety of stuff out there, because even if you're thinking about big like super groups like Nexus, like they do what would be like a more contemporary concert of music done by composers within the last 20 years or so, maybe a little longer.
70.
So well, but then they also have a ragtime concert, which is amazing too. I'm sure all of that stuff's up on YouTube for people to take a look at, or at least you can head to individual groups' websites to be able, and they kind of guide you to that kind of stuff. So if somebody wanted to go into either percussion performance or percussion ed, what would you tell them that they should do?
Really, I mean, at some levels, just start playing. It's not tricky, right? The great thing about percussion is that you can make a great sound like pretty quick off the bat. If you've got a decent pair of sticks and a decent thing to hit, you can start to sound pretty good. And I think everybody likes that part of it. I think when you're talking about drum set, or you're talking about, even the keyboard instruments or snare drum, I mean, you can get going pretty quick. And so you can find some good resources. I mean, if I had a young person that I really wanted to get going, then I just look for an excuse to play for 15 or 20 minutes a day. You've got to be a person that's got a little bit of an analytical mind. You kind of have to like to tear things apart and solve problems. You have to be focused enough to know that there's a lot of technical work that has to be done without getting bored with it. But you do get some immediate feedback. I mean, if you want to play hand drums, if you want to play some easy kind of stuff on drum set and snare drum, like you can get going pretty quick. So unlike some of the wind instruments, for instance, you don't have to spend a lot of time developing embouchure and breath support. You can just kind of get going. So in that respect, it's a lot like singing. I mean, you can get going making music with it right off the bat.
Well, and I know we have a 12-year-old who is second year band, right?
Yep.
And we had been talking about just technique and everything, and how for people in general, actually the hardest portion is snare drum and stuff like that. It's not necessarily your marimba stuff, because a marimba, when you're looking at it, looks like a keyboard instrument. And so that's familiar and it's easier to do, but that students, when it gets down to the technical and analytical portion of breaking down what is playing a drum, it's a little bit harder. You have to actually work at it. So.
Yeah. I mean, to develop the kind of refinement and orchestral skills that really top-notch rudimental and orchestral players have, you got to put some time in. That's where your time comes in. But I mean, if you think about drumming and singing, I mean, those were our first two performance opportunities as a species. So I think if you want to get started with it, find something that makes a cool sound and start playing and go from there. Highs and lows.
And so if they wanted to get into either teaching percussion collegiately, or maybe they want to be a performer, what's their path? Like, what would you say that they should think about doing?
You find a good teacher and you start taking lessons, and you find some good recordings and you listen to those, and you just start putting in the work. Like I say, the work that I do, even playing with the orchestra, we're coming off a concert where I played a lot of cymbals with our last Wagner concert. And the cymbal playing, for instance, that I do as a professional orchestral player isn't that much different than the cymbal playing that I talk to kids at the middle school or the intermediate school about when we go over there. The functions of it aren't, it's not wildly different. It's spending enough time with it to be able to create the sounds you want immediately when you need them, and trusting that you have to do that. So I think like any other performance medium, it's just finding somebody that can show you the ways to make the right sounds, finding someone that can keep you motivated on the path to do it. So you find a teacher and you find a goal, and you just do a little work every day to get going that way. It's not mysterious in that way.
So if we're talking about the quarantine here, is there a resource that you would say, or resources, where if you're at home, maybe you're a young percussionist, maybe you're a collegiate percussionist, that you would say, like, this is a legitimate resource that you should take a look at here?
Yeah, we've got some manufacturers that have put together really, really good resources that just sit there and go. Vic Firth is a stick manufacturer, mallet implement manufacturer, and they have a terrific educational page. Matter of fact, I use it in some of my collegiate classes. I send my college students there. So I would go to vicfirth.com, and they've got features and education pages, and everybody right now is working on downloadable content and PDFs, and like Tommy Igo, who's a killer drum set player, is doing a daily hands development thing over his Instagram Live, and John Wooten, who teaches at University of Southern Mississippi, is going through his method book, Rudimental Remedies, like all next week. He's going to go through every lesson. So right now I think there's this, percussionists are very collaborative as a species. I mean, we kind of have to be. And so people are really coming together to share resources and share opportunities. But yeah, if I was looking for something to do, I would go to the Vic Firth page as a good free resource. PAS.org is the Progressive Art Society page, and they've got some good free resources there too. And that's where I would start.
So if we want to know more about SDSU percussion, whether it's ensemble playing, taking lessons, being a music major, being part of the marching band, everything that you do, where do we push people to go?
You can go a couple places. We're on we have some presence on all the social media networks. So at SD State Percussion on Instagram, Pride of the Dakotas Drumline, and SD State Percussion on Facebook. We don't have our own dedicated Twitter feed yet, but you can check out the marching band, which is at SDSU_Pride Band on Twitter. sdstate.edu/music will hit the music department webpage. And then there's a sidebar that will point you to there's a studio page, there are individual ensemble pages. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, just at Aaron Ragsdale, or you can find me on Instagram too. So I think that's where I would head.
Is it too late to join the marching band next fall?
Never, ever, ever.
Okay.
We'll do, I think people are making college decisions right now. So those of you that are making college decisions haven't gone through orientation yet. We're just now starting to advise for the fall semester. And we'll have orientation all through the summer. And so, yeah, if somebody wants to jump in and be a part of the drumline or the marching band for next fall, those opportunities are still way open.
And for a music major, there's not an audition, right? Like, or what happens if you want to be a music major at State?
So at State, there is an audition process. We had scholarship auditions that ran through February. If you were coming into State, fall of 20, and wanted to be a music major, we would take you in, and then we would technically do your audition at the end of your first semester of lessons.
Okay. So besides all of your music stuff, what do you do for fun?
I go to soccer games. I coach a little bit of soccer.
Yeah.
I like to run the grill and cook when the weather is appropriate for that.
Travel. We travel a lot.
We do travel a lot, mostly for soccer. But no, we like to travel. We like to go to the beach. We like to get out of the house.
Music concerts, I'd say.
Go to a lot of concerts.
Right.
I like to read books. I like to play the Xbox when appropriate.
But, okay. So we'll send people to aaron.ragsdale@sdstate.edu. And if you need more information about percussion in general, or you had some questions about resources and maybe we were just talking too fast, I am sure he'd be glad to send an email off, so that way while we're kind of self-isolating here, your kids or yourself can work up your skills. And if you had any questions about joining the marching band or the percussion ensemble next year, he'd be able to take those.
Yep, absolutely.
thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I hope I'm not your only guest in perpetuity for a while.
I hope not.
You could give 4 episodes of this.
Well, we'll just have to start telling jokes or something here later on. So.
One of us will.
Well, probably me. Thanks. Okay, thank you.